The fear of being seen, or what some of you may call the fear of being perceived, is a symptom that you have been oppressed from your formative years. The fear of criticism and judgment is not a fear that you were born with. There are only two fears that us human beings are born with: the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. All the rest of the fears that you have are instilled by conditioning. If you got punished when you expressed yourself, put your opinion out, were honest, or you stood out as somebody unique and different, then of course over time you're going to fear the consequences of standing out, speaking up, and shining. The people who oppressed you did not want you to be significant. They wanted to keep you powerless because you were a leverage of powergasm or free labor. If you were to gain power and you recognize your value, of course you will stop giving it out for free. You didn't allow them to feel powergasm by overriding you, punishing you, and pushing you down. Capitalism is an attention economy. It's not about how good you are, how competent and efficient you are. Those things do matter. But if you have all of those elements of success, but fear of being seen, you make yourself small. You work in the background. You don't think to put your name out there and be recognized as the person, the crucial key player. Then you will not get paid and be recognized to the level that you deserve. In translation, no matter how educated and competent you are, you will not get the money and the promotion that you deserve. When you don't recognize what you bring to the table and you bargain with your privileges to trade up for more privilege, no one's gonna suddenly come and recognize you and say, you deserve so much more. You deserve to get paid more. You deserve a promotion. Ultimately, everybody's motivation is driven by capitalism. Everyone wants to gain more by giving little. That's how you make a profit. This was true in your family of origin of how they all leverage your labor while never allowing you to see your value. This is also true in any corporate environment, organization, community, and of course, even in your own business. I know so many entrepreneurs who think that corporate is not for them and they go into business and they make all the same mistakes again. Being afraid of being seen. Well, you are the best kept secret. Someone's going to leverage you, your intellectual property, your hard work, and claim ownership or pretend like they figured it out themselves and run with it. Boldness is rewarded in capitalism. Of course, you have to be bold strategically. You can't be going against the laws of power when you're bold. However, primarily, most people lack courage and are driven by fear. Decisions that you make based on fear create more trauma and losses. And winning in the society, in capitalism, in power games is ultimately about not how many times you fail, but how many times you won and which significant battles you won, because some battles have more currency. When you have the fear of being seen, then you can't take many risks. You cannot experiment. You fear failure. You fear criticism. You ultimately fear punishment, which means you are trapped by your fear within yourself. Even before anyone is out to oppress you, you are your own oppressor. And this is how oppression works so perfectly. Because once they programmed you through your formative environment, putting you through many struggles, and take away your ability to think for yourself and know your own value, you will start self-flagellating. You will prison yourself within the confines of your own mind with the fears that control your livelihood, all your decisions, all your career moves, even in your own business. Anti-power moves are based on fear, and your coping mechanisms, which you call your personality, are ways that you are avoiding facing your fears. The fear of being seen, judged, criticized, being unique, standing out, knowing your value, and claiming that. Many of you have heard the saying, if hard work is what creates success, then the donkey would own the farm. We all know that's not true. I am not by any means encouraging people to have the kind of audacity and entitlement that people who scam, lie, cheat, and exploit embody. You do not need to become the narcissist to understand the laws of power and become effective in a world fueled by capitalism, patriarchy, and racism. You can become more helpful to yourself and become discerning when you make decisions to think about profit instead of carelessly opting in and experiencing losses time and time again. This is why I always say if you're not good at making good relationship decisions, you'll be a terrible professional. And a terrible professional also becomes a terrible business owner. If you're taking losses in your personal life, you're going to take losses in your professional life. If you're being leveraged by your family members and they're constantly powergasming and taking advantage of you, then of course, absolutely, you're going to have poor boundaries in your professional life. And once the same type of person goes into business, they're going to be completely unaware of what are assets and the liabilities, what's profit over loss. If you do not have the basic awareness of financial literacy with all the resources that you manage, not just money, but time, energy, focus, emotional space that you're creating, if you're not managing and investing every form of your resource to turn a profit, then you inevitably are going to experience loss. In capitalism, people want to take advantage of you. People want to get more out of you. It is up to you to know your own value, price yourself right, and manage your resources in terms of the scope of what you're willing to give, and very important, gatekeep, so that you can trade more of your privilege to gain more privilege. If you do not manage your life, your resources as a business, then you will constantly take losses, and then you will blame the narcissists, who essentially are people who walked in because you allowed them to. In most cases, you are complacent in allowing them to come into your life, and you reveal to them all the riches and the resources that you have, and you allow them to tap into it. This is especially the case for those of us who do not automatically generate the feeling or the unconscious bias that we are meant to be at the top of the hierarchy and be leaders. If societal unconscious biases work against you, you are not seen automatically as a wealthy, successful, prominent leader, then you can't afford to have the fear of being seen. Not only you have to be ultra competent, provide great value, you also have to have an even stronger ability to position yourself in the market. And this is regardless of what industry and what kind of work you do. Academia is corporate. Not-for-profit is corporate. Being an artist is already capitalism, because if you want to make it as an artist, what you're saying is that you want to be a great business person as an artist. Any type of work where you're making money, even outside of a regular corporate or professional career, you are working with the powers of capitalism. Too many of you are working against it. The first law of capitalism is speed, efficiency, turning over a high profit, meaning investing and at least doubling that investment. But also a very important law of capitalism is that if you do not promote yourself, if you're not seen, if you're not perceived as the person, the product, the service that can deliver all the tremendous value, if you do not make yourself unique and different and stand out from the crowd, you'll be ignored, and it doesn't matter how good you are. Only when you're seen and you capture their attention, you're able to show them how you can make their life easier, their profits higher, and help them manage their risks with more certainty. For many of you watching, you may still be very much focused on working on your competency. But for the majority of you, the main problem you're facing isn't the competency. Of course, we have to continuously work on our professional development because that's the definition of being a great professional. But the main problem you're facing is your fear of being seen. The key to fixing your career and business problems is standing out from the noise, being memorable by positioning yourself as the option that can help to amplify someone else's power and privilege in the system. In this process, you must not forget that you must also gain power and privilege through your efforts. The good girl is a workhorse, the bad bitch is a leader. The good girl helps others while discarding herself. The bad bitch collects power and privilege through her efforts. Don't ever misunderstand my content by thinking the bad bitch is a scammer. She is not. No matter what she does, she's a great entrepreneur who knows how to turn an excellent profit. Do not fall into the internalized misogyny money story. Patriarchy has programmed all of us, including women, to see women in power with money as evil. When you're sold by this story, you self-sabotage. You hide. You get into the background because who wants to be scrutinized and witch hunted? None of us do. That fear and shame is what controls you from needing to be seen, knowing your value in the marketplace, and claiming that as your power. Money is a tool. It's a leverage in capitalism, patriarchy, and racism. It's not the only leverage that will protect you from everything because, as we mentioned before, we talked about this many times across many different videos, patriarchal and racist biases do not go away just because you have money. Winning in capitalism is not the end-all, be-all protection. However, without money, you can't have power. It is an essential tool to have leverage, to have power. And without power, you cannot have boundaries. Without leverage, you cannot have any boundaries. You can pretend to have standards, and the moment you have to make the decision, protect yourself, walk away from something, you won't be able to because you don't have options, you don't have leverage, you don't have power. What often doesn't get talked about enough when we talk about boundaries is what leverage do you have? If you don't have leverage and you can't hold any boundaries, you cannot maintain them after setting them. And once you set a boundary and you go back on them, then that's even more of a power loss. That's more of a prey positioning than you were before. Shift your identity, shift your mindset around power, and become the bad bitch that you claim to be. Go down to the description to book a call to join our Elegance, Social Elegance, and Power Training program, where we specifically focus on word magic that includes small talk, power positioning, controlling the perception of you, and influencing and persuading others to get what you want. Thank you for watching, and see you in my next video.